Right, let me just keep an eye on the chat. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Joe. Emphasize certain words in a sentence. Good. Give a choice of topics that are related to their course to make it meaningful. Thank you, Shirley. Yeah, very good. Spot the difference between American presidents. Yeah, well done. Fantastic, Josh. I love that. Matthew, frequent informal class debates. Oh, you cannot go wrong there. Brilliant. Presentation and body language, really important. Speed interviewing, love that. Use Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream. Yeah, really good to show power of language. Brilliant stuff, very powerful. And also very good for persuasive language as well, I find, for teaching persuasive language, that particular speech. But also Winston Churchill's speech as well in the Second World War is very powerful too. To sell an object, yeah. Or I would say, Joe, try and get your learners to sell a useless object like a ball, some broken spectacles or a scratched CD and see what they can come up with. That really is a test of their persuasive skills. Very good. So Tariq, yeah, okay. So you're wanting to do a presentation in order to model on to do in terms of visual content. Yeah, that's fine. That sounds good, Tariq. Yeah. Obviously, if you've got any further ideas, let me know. No problem. Good. That's good, Siobhan. That's great. Something that's important to them, they consider worth listening to. Yeah, we need to delve into what they want to listen to. Brilliant. Watch some videos where people don't communicate well. That's always good. Yeah. Use cards and topics. Thank you, Paula. They have to give their opinion. Yeah, really good. Steve Jobs' first ever iPhone release. Very interesting because there's so little on his slideshow. All comes from his calm, deliberate presentation of the phone. Fantastic, Josh. Very good. Really good stuff there, guys. Excellent. Excellent. Really good. Really good. Okay, right. Okay, so I'm going to leave the chat to one side. What I've got here, guys, is we're going to have a little bit of a discussion really about speaking and listening. And again, first of all, we have to appreciate that when we are thinking of using techniques and strategies, we also have to be, sorry, Dorette, I think you mentioned a really good point here. I do a handout with questions pertaining to individual's description, then swap papers and ask each to describe the person they've swapped with. Very nice, I love that. They then feel relaxed and know the person they're describing. Missed the question, so sound went off. It's okay, Liz. It's all right, Liz. I was just asking colleagues, how do you normally go about teaching, speaking, and listening, developing students' oracy skills, listening skills? So if anything comes to mind, you can just share it on the chat. Okay, so in terms of a very important consideration here is obviously for us to be able to choose the appropriate method and technique for our students. We also need to be aware that our learners are going to come to our sessions with lots of varieties of spoken English, okay? Lots of varieties. I mean, some may be second language speakers, or they may speak other languages. They may, come from different parts of the country. There may be certain dialects that are spoken within the region. And invariably, sometimes some of the vocabulary may only be specific to that particular dialect in that part of the region that is not ordinarily used in mainstream. And also in terms of varieties, dare I say, do some of your students use text speak? Do they sometimes use words that are not ordinarily used in say texting that comes into their spoken discourse as well? Because I suppose the whole thing is that if you look at it as a funnel, there's all these varieties, but then at the end of the funnel is at the end of the day, students do need to engage with more formal styles of speaking English. Now, when I say formal, I'm not talking about the Queen's English. I'm not talking about received pronunciation, RP, because the RP is the accent of standard English, or what we call the Queen's English or crystal clear English. So we're not getting people to to train them up to talk like BBC or ITV broadcasters, because everybody will still bring in their own language identity. I mean, you can't change someone's accent. There's no point doing that because accents are part of someone's identity. However, what we can work on is things like vocabulary. We can work on intonation in terms of rising and falling tone of the voice. We can work on stress, word stress, okay? We can also work on their grammar, their spoken grammar, because sometimes spoken grammar can be quite different to written grammar. So maybe the teaching of more parts of the speech for writing to help them with their formal use of spoken English for their presentations for their functional skills is going to be part of a lesson, I'm sure. But it's about giving learners language choices for them to choose from, but also for them to retain their own linguistic identity, but then for them to be able to do appropriate adaptations. Okay, and that's really, really important as well. Now, the other thing that we will talk about in more detail in the second session about students with additional learning needs. And again, if, you know, particular students, if they've got particular speech difficulties, you know, speech impediments, stammering, or, you know, if some of them are kind of undergoing speech and language therapy, now that will, you know, invariably obviously be a consideration in your teaching as well, but it doesn't mean that the learners can't be ready and prepared and can't be taught the various things that will help them along their journey. Obviously, when they're assessed, then, you know, whether any reasonable adjustments are applied to the behest of the awarding organization, then they would be applied accordingly. But every student should still be given the opportunity of trying things out, trying different things, as long as it's not compromising their voice or their vocal cords, then that's something definitely to bear in mind as well. Okay, so it's just to be aware, guys. Can I have any comments from anybody about the things that I've mentioned? That, you know, what are the kinds of challenges do you have with learners who are displaying varieties of spoken English? Okay, whether it's the dialect, whether it's the accent, whether it's their pronunciation, whether it's the tone of their voice, if it's their tonality, if it's the volume of their voice. Is it because they're using a monotone style because their first language is always in a monotone? That's first language interference. So just tell me, guys, just quickly, let me get a measure of what's happening in terms of spoken varieties in your class. Let's have a look. Yeah, monotone. Yeah, Natasha, that tends to be, yeah. So really, you know, getting learners to listen to varieties of spoken English in your lessons is really important. So, you know, things from BBC, getting to, I mean, I find that with lots of my students, if I want them to be exposed to more formal models of English, I do show them bits and pieces of the news, you know, just as examples, and to do some analysis work around that. So I do like using stuff on the media, on the more formal media. Yeah, now, thank you, Dorette. That's very interesting you mentioned that, because, you know, students, if they're not undergoing any kind of language, and lots of people with stammers and speech impediments, they're not under a speech and language therapist. And there are other things like just getting the learner to gradually improve their confidence. And I know that, you know, for example, for some students, I mean, with the English speaking board work that I do, what the teachers do is they do get the learners to stand up and speak, just to get them used to projecting their voices and doing the pitch. And it may well be frightening for some with a stammer, but it can be a deal breaker. It can get them over the line. It can boost their confidence. And I'm thinking, oh, sorry, someone's trying to get into the chat. Sorry, hopefully I'm not blocking anybody unwittingly. Oh, right, people are coming in. I have to keep an eye on the participant box because I don't know whether people have been told to leave the room. I'm not sure what's happened there. All right, guys, so we're having a few technical problems. I'm not sure whether colleagues, I've got the participant thing open, pinned on my thing, and I've also got the chat thing pinned. So I'll keep a close eye out, people who may have been, don't know what's happening there, but anyway, no problem. I hope you can all hear me and see me now. So yeah, so just kind of, let's have a look and see what people are saying. Right, okay. Let's have a look, right, with regards to varieties of spoken English. Yeah, that's a really good point, Shirley. You're trying to teach more formal grammar and they only use it in a certain way. That's a difficult one, but it is our job to expose them to it, to do the modeling work, and then hopefully it's up to them to make the appropriate language choices. This is a really important point in terms of transferability. Right, guys, I'm hearing a lot of clicking on the keyboard. Would you mind if I can just kindly mute people so I don't have to hear that? Thank you very much. Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. And so, oh, very good. That's interesting. African-American vernacular English. Sounds interesting. I've never heard of that. That's okay. Oh, no problem, Zabia. My God, heroics this morning. Homeschooling as well. No problem. That's okay. Don't worry. I'm keeping an eye, Zabia, on the participant list. So if people have been told to leave and then they're coming back, I'll try to get them back in. Using your own accent, start to break the ice. Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. You know, and also, I mean, there's a BBC, I think she's moved to Channel 4 now, Steph McGovern, who used to work for BBC Breakfast. Very, very popular broadcaster. But in the beginning, unfortunately, she was slated for her very, very deep northern accent and dialect. But now she's moved across. But I use that as examples of somebody using excellent quality of English, but then obviously they've got their own individual identity, and that's absolutely fine. We're not asking you to change, you know, your kind of language background or how you style the English. It's all about the quality of the content, which is the main thing, rather than how you say it. But obviously, if learners, if they need to be aware of things like the pronunciation or their speed or their rising and the falling tone, then this is the kind of thing that we would be pinpointing to them as part of their language class. Okay, are there any other things with regards to language variety that people want to raise?